the meeting to order,
So it goes down.
6:03.
She flooded it, but not census.
Darlene?
Can you do Paul first?
Excuse me.
Can you do Paul Mercier first?
Excuse me. Paul,
Evening.
first up.
Well, I came over, Darlene called me yesterday and said, can I come over and go over the reports and answer any questions that you guys might have? And
This is to do with the audit for 2015.
And so, I'm happy to do that. I was just gonna point out that, one thing that you're gonna notice is different this year in the government-wide statements is we bring in, because of new requirements, your share of the unfunded liability of the New Hampshire retirement system comes onto your books as a liability. It's because this is a cost-sharing plan, everybody shares in the liability of the unfunded amount, if you will. Retirement plan estimates that it's about 65% funded at this point, but they've been talking about raising rates because the funding and it changes from day to day based on the market. And so there's what they do is they hire their actuaries and their auditors to audit that actuarial information, and so that liability represents all of your employees that are in the system, that have ever been in the system until the day they die, or whatever estimated life expectancy tables are. And that comes into your books as a liability, even though you pay based on, as you go along, as a percentage of wages, based on the rates that are approved every 2 years by the legislature. And so it's a liability that's on your books that technically you would never pay it unless there was some grave emergency that the retirement system went belly up. The chances of that happening, every 2 years they look at the rates and they say, well, like a couple of years ago we saw they adjusted those rates because the market wasn't doing very good. Then they brought those rates back down. Now they're looking at adjusting those rates again. And so it'll continue like that forever. And so that, what it affects is it affects you have essentially two sets of financial statements. You have your budgetary statements based on modified accrual accounting, which counts, for example, if you buy a truck, capital asset, you budget for that, you pay for that. In those budgetary statements, that's an expense. In the accrual basis statements, the capital asset comes onto the balance sheet, and the only thing that comes into the expense would be depreciation, the piece that we used each year over its useful life. So the only place that liability for the retirement system shows or affects is your government-wide statements, and those are, say, a consolidation of the entire town and reported the same way as a commercial business would be reported. So all the fixed assets or the capital assets, all of the long-term debt is on that balance sheet. So it's not, typically, those are not the statements that you use. Those are not numbers that are even on your book. They're numbers that come into play only in the preparation of these few statements that are in the beginning of this report. The rest of this report is pretty much the same as what you used to see. So the town has a unassigned fund balance of $1,494,402. That's the amount of fund balance that you would have available to use toward taxes or to appropriate off of that surplus or whatever. And that's consistent with what you've carried right along. And so that, beyond that, You know, there's a lot of detail in the notes to the financial statements. There's schedules that, in the back of the report that walk you all the way back to what your voted line items were at town meeting, say. So there's a detailed line by line estimated revenue and appropriation statement. And then, of course, in addition to the general fund statements that make up your overall financial report, it includes the library, the trust funds, all your, any projects that might be in the works, like your Chicora safety project. Those kinds of things are all part of your financial statements. Questions?
I actually just picked your report up this morning, you know, you've just gotten it done recently.
Well, that's why I didn't, I didn't go into a lot of detail, you might have
And
questions.
I haven't actually gone over it, but I will, and have any questions, like always, I get a hold of you.
Sure, you know where to find me.
Yeah, I've only given a cursory read.
Yep, that's fine.
But there's nothing that jumps out at you as any
No,
reason for
actually,
concern or anything financially.
you know, you've gone through some transition of personnel this year, that's, but you've had I think a smooth transition, so that, but at the same time, the board may be, better, in terms of historical, knowledge of the finances and stuff, so in terms of the big picture, you wanna keep your eyes on the big picture sort of thing. And then, obviously support, new staff as best you can, but, you've got a pretty solid team here, you know. Tax office does a good job, this office is doing a good job, you've got decent software that's serving your needs well, and
Good.
so as far as that goes, the next 250 years, eh? Congratulations, you've made it this far.
Now that's a guarantee, right?
You're actually one year older than my hometown, which will be 2018, celebrated. But yeah, they're already gearing up, so.
Any questions from the public for the town auditor?
Can I ask why it took so long to get to this point? Doesn't sound like there's any earth shaking.
No, well, we finished field work in the spring. We typically are very busy in the wintertime with field work. It had, you know, the holdup in delivery of the reports really had absolutely nothing to do with the town. It had really most everything just to do with the fact that our workload as auditors has gotten deeper. With new regulations and new requirements, and now the state is pushing their reporting to a different format, and so that reporting takes longer, and so we just got bogged down, and that's the long and short of it. There's only so many Sundays, and we're running out of Sundays.
Maybe next year it'll be quicker.
Well, yeah, that's what,
Hopefully.
you know,
That's what we'd like.
the best thing about gardening is next season. Always next season, hopefully. But yeah, we adjust, we pull back, we retrench, and we move ahead, and hopefully we make good choices, and things get better.
Anything else from the public for Paul?
I'd like to just say thank you, because I came in new to the town doing the finances, got a hold of Paul, and we talked about numbers, and he always had answers for me. And believe me, I had a lot of questions, so he has great worksheets that he shared, and very comfortable with the figures and going forward, and your accessibility to us as an auditor that's immeasurable, it's very important. So thanks.
Well, thank you. Yeah,
Thank you, Paul.
we've structured our practice basically to focus on the a hands-on. It's more of a hands-on approach. I mean, I came from a larger firm, and now I've been in practice in this model for about 20 years. This was 20 years in April, and so I do my own field work and draw up my own reports and work when I'm in the community working. Instead of, it used to be I'd come through the door with 6 people in tow and we'd take over the whole place. And now it's pretty much one department. You know, I'm working with one set of individuals at a time. Wasn't sure how it was gonna work out 20 years ago, but, it's been a good model for me anyways,
Great.
so.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
All right, thank you.
Darlene?
The MS1's been filed and property values are up slightly, about 1%. Not much else has changed. Revenues are a little lower. Is there anyone specifically that you'd like me to speak to about Irene's Way? And so we can get moving on that?
And we
Paul
talked,
had, I don't think you were here, Paul had suggested that we speak with someone, maybe some of the elderly residents to get some history that they might remember. I don't know, maybe Mr. Moody would have some information.
I'll ask him.
I think Paul had spoken to your dad or somebody before that.
Maybe years ago.
Maybe years ago, he had information, so.
but we talked about Paul getting together with Rick, hadn't we, at one time, and Rick putting a letter together for the state?
Yeah, but that, Paul's last comment to me was maybe get some
See if we get
some more information from residents and then we can move
Recollection.
forward. Okay, so we'll do that.
Another one would be Donald Hutchins,
Okay,
South Tamworth. Anybody else?
No. I mean, we said right to the camera, anybody watching, if they can think of it, make some minutes.
let's see, the town clerk got, her award for the Moose Plate Grant of $6,500 for this year. I guess we'll be talking to Norman about the CDBG grant, because that was today, right? I don't know when you want to do that, it's not on the agenda. And the Board of Selectmen in Molten Borough would like to meet about pooling resources possibly, maybe a meeting sometime in October. I didn't know who or if all of you wanted to go and when would be good. They're looking for suggestions. I think John said he wanted to do it.
Evening would be the best for me.
Okay, so
It's always
just,
best.
anyone? Okay.
And they got more resources, they're gonna do more pooling than us, right?
I'm not sure about that. I left a packet for you about the NHMA conference.
Yep.
If you're gonna be going, let me know, we can get signed up. And do you mind if Kathy and I go on both those days?
I don't, I think that's a selectman meeting night on Thursday,
It
right?
is, but we're meeting later, so we can come back. I can come back and do the meeting, that's not a problem.
Okay.
Do you generally open this up to other departments and board members and stuff? Have you ever done that before? I know they have a lot of welfare classes and stuff, I didn't know.
We haven't in the past, but I'd say anybody want to go, welcome.
Okay, I'll do that. And the only other thing I have was, Kim wanted to ask if you were gonna keep the transfer station permits the same for 2 years, they need to be reordered. Gwen hasn't talked about changing, she wanted to make sure it was all right with you guys, that we're gonna be the same, 2 years.
I don't think so.
It's fine with
It's
me.
been working for a while.
Yep. That's it? That's all I have.
We have selectmen's minutes for September 17th. Motion to approve,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Selectmen's minutes and work session of September 22nd. Motion to approve.
Second.
I'm going to abstain because I wasn't at the meeting. Selectmen's minutes of September 24th. Motion to approve. minutes of September 25th. Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Minutes of non-public selectmen's meeting, September 17th. Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Non-public meeting minutes of September 22nd. Motion to approve.
Second.
I'm gonna abstain. Wasn't there. Non-public minutes of September 24th. Motion to approve.
Second.
Would you agree that I mentioned about seeking legal counsel?
Yeah. Yep.
I'd like that added to the minutes. For next meeting.
Yeah.
Under when we entered into non-public session.
Oh, these are the ones Steve did, okay. Okay.
The manifest and check register. For a total of $310,185.27. Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
The payroll authorization, $4,627.38. Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
This is setting the time for the polling hours for November 6th. Be from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m.
We gotta sign all 4 spots, right? 2 on each, yeah.
Have an intent to cut for map 405, lot 15. Have an intent to cut for map 412, lot 25. We have a HUD form to sign, environmental form for the Tamworth Village Association. Norman, would you like to update us on what's happening with the Tamworth Village Association subject?
Sure, I was attending here tonight just to ensure that you did have that notification on the agenda.
Oh, I thought it was something for today, I'm sorry,
Okay.
so I made a mistake.
I attended this afternoon the New Hampshire Finance Authority meeting on our application for $350,000 to fund the repair of the system. We were cut to the chase. We were approved by a vote of 3-2. It was a very passionate presentation. There were two of the directors who were firmly opposed to our application, primarily on the grounds that they believed that it should be a municipality issue, and they weren't supportive of a private association ultimately running the system. They certainly didn't have confidence that the same problem may not happen again. But nonetheless, it was approved by a vote of 3-2. I really don't care whether we win 20-0 or 1-0 in extra innings. A win is a win, and that's all that I believe really matters.
Yep.
But the next step is for this notice, public notice that we are intending to spend federal funds on this project, and apparently only the town can make that notification. It can't come from TVA. So Donna Lane asked for me to attend tonight just to ensure that that was on the agenda and that it was hopefully signed off and we can move forward, because we cannot act on the bid process or authorize any construction until this notification takes place, and then I believe there's a 15-day comment period, and then yet another notice has to be filed. And so I do have some documents explaining what that process is. If you don't already have them, I'd be happy to submit them here this evening. So these were,
Yeah, I think they are,
you
they're in there.
have these?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'll keep them.
You wanna double check that everything's the
Okay.
same down,
Yeah.
just so we don't forget something.
Actually,
Those are,
they're in another pile in there. This
Okay.
was just for the stuff for him to sign.
okay.
But I do have all this as well.
Thank you.
She was gonna fill the date in. Okay, we're good.
What's the next step now, Norman? I mean, the 15 days, and then how long is the bid process?
We had already reached out to contractors, perhaps a little premature on that, to determine what the level of interest was. And we contacted 6 contractors on that, and I presented at was it the 22nd when we last met on who exactly those folks were. And we do have bids back from those contractors. We haven't opened them. We're holding them subject to meeting these other criteria.
Does that have to be advertised once you've been approved?
No, it does
Across?
not.
It doesn't.
No, we're told it does not.
Okay.
Again, I wish I was more familiar with the process, but this is how it's been explained to me. And again, I met with Donna this afternoon after the meeting for CDFA, and she said the critical next step is to get the notice in the paper so we can begin that 15-day period.
Yep.
And then hopefully at the conclusion of that, we can move forward with the bid process and award a contract.
When you hope to break ground, in November or December?
Each of the contractors were required to provide us with a construction schedule with their bids.
Yep.
Pretty much everyone indicated that they would be able to start within 30 days of award.
Good. Hope for a nice fall.
Early winter.
Anything from the public, Norman? Like to close the work session at 6:30. Public comment.
And I asked that you, the select board, consider incorporating the 250th logo into the town residence stickers?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Yep.
The transfer station sticker.
But they're gonna go for 2 years, they're gonna have to say 250 first or
Oh,
252nd.
yeah, however you guys want to word it, but I think it'd be nice if even just have a
I'm
logo
teasing.
on
That's
it.
a good
No, I
idea.
agree. Good idea.
Just don't tell them.
Public comment? Yes.
I was just wondering if, you know, now that the police department's in kind of a state of flux, if the selectmen were interested in, and I know you guys are very good about taking public comment during all your selectmen's meetings, but just sort of having a session where you discuss kind of the future of the department, what sort of law enforcement we need, you know, how many officers we need, you know, just sort of just kind of rethink the whole thing and just ask Bill how many we need.
I don't know that we're prepared to make any decisions tonight. We don't have a full board. Selectman Gray is away till the first part of the week. As soon as he gets back, we'll be scheduling a meeting and see what direction the board wishes to go.
Okay.
Any other public comment? Yes.
Yeah, Willie Farnham. You know, as the selectmen move forward to looking to find a chief, I hope that they'll consider someone who has the following qualifications: a certified police officer in good standing, management skills with paperwork and personnel, understanding community policing, is devoted to the town, capable of handling emergency situations, police, fire, and rescue, knows the town and its people, able to write and receive grants, has an EMT training, lives in town. I know it's going to be a long process to get to that point, but I think those are some things that need to be well considered as we look forward for our police department to be our police department. And there are people that do have those requirements, and they should be considered. At some point when you get ready to go further, I'd like to be involved in discussing the police department, so just when you get the full board, I'd like to be there.
Anything else? Public comment? Yes.
With all that's happened in the police department.
Excuse me, could you state your name?
Sorry, Chloe Littlefield. With all that's happened in the police department since last December, I'm just wondering if the board has held any accountability for their actions.
At this time, no.
No. Right. Do you think that you handled it well?
Yeah, I think we've done a great job.
I would respectfully disagree.
You know, Jim should chime in here too, he's also a selectman.
Yeah,
I'm
I
just
mean,
speaking
it's-
for myself, I'm not speaking for the board.
Yeah, and I'll speak for myself, not for the board. It's been, I'm not gonna lie, it's been ups and downs, for sure. You know, not everything's worked out so smooth as we might have hoped, but, you know, certainly the intent was always to try to do the right thing.
Okay, the paper was quoted multiple times that Colby was hired by an independent board. Who chose that board? How was the board selected?
The board discussed different people.
So each member of the board brought up different names?
There were a bunch of names mentioned in the process. I think we settled on 3 in the end.
It's 3, yeah.
3.
So each individual board member brought forth a name, or was there just one person that brought forth names?
No, the whole board was involved, yeah.
Do you agree with that, Jim?
I didn't have anyone I suggested, because I'll be honest, I couldn't think of anybody that I didn't feel was tied to the community. You know, I'd
Steve
have to shout
offered-
some of them.
Did Steve offer names as well?
I honestly cannot remember. I got a hard enough time remembering my own stuff.
I just think it's interesting because John, you were quoted as saying if it were up to you, you would have just promoted Penny from the get-go.
I
And-
would have.
Right, and my understanding from what you guys have just said is perhaps you were the one that brought forth the names for the hiring committee, and that
I
to me
don't,
just
I
seems.
don't, excuse me, I don't believe that I brought all the names forward. There was a bunch of names mentioned. There was one person from town that I did not bring to the board.
I don't know what that means.
There was one person that was on that
Oh,
committee.
okay, sorry, I didn't understand what you're saying. That's all.
Thank you. Anything else?
Vicky's got something
Becky?
to add.
Can you go over now, because I know there was a motion made and everything about how the cruisers were in town or not in town? Could you reiterate now, because I'm assuming that one cruiser is allowed to go out of town and where the second cruiser is?
Sergeant Cooper is taking his vehicle home now. I believe the chief's cruiser is at Austria Mountain Electronics. Am I right in saying that, Craig?
No, we have that back in town.
Okay. It went to Crest Chevrolet, then it went to Austria Mountain, I didn't know it was back from Austria Mountain.
So, to follow procedure then, should you not make a motion to rescind the motion you made that he couldn't take his cruiser out of town and have a motion on the books that states that now that he's acting chief, he has the right to take the cruiser out of town? So nobody questions that?
We had discussed that on, what was the 25th?
We discussed it, whatever date, at the PD on a Sunday afternoon and authorized him to take the cruiser home. I don't remember the
That
exact
would be
date.
non-public minutes. It's not out in public. All I'm saying is to keep the trail open is you probably want to put a motion out there so everybody in town knows that he now has been given permission to take it home.
We'll look into that.
Oh, I don't know.
Anything else? Department head and committee updates. Police department, Greg.
Good evening, everyone. For the month of September 2016, we handled 3 accidents, motor vehicle accidents. One with injury, the other 2 with just vehicle damage. The department handled 79 calls and complaints. A lot of directed patrols and investigations into suspicious activity. We issued 9 summonses for motor vehicle related offenses. Issued 26 warnings. The animal control officer handled 16 calls, and we effected 3 arrests.
For the week.
For the month of September, yes.
It'd be a hell of a week, David.
Yeah, there's no other time period.
Yeah.
The one guy.
Yeah, one guy. Thank you, Greg.
You are. Thank you. Anything from Greg for the public? Parks and Rec?
I just came in because we're gonna be doing the work at the townhouse on the chimney, hopefully starting next week. They will be taking the chimney down to the roof and replacing it. They'll be reflashing it and building it from there up, and then they will be dropping a flue liner down into the chimney.
Great.
Just to solve the problem that we had last winter. And that will take probably about 4 days. And when I have the exact day they will start, people will be entering through the side of the parking lot.
Okay.
Rather, because they're gonna set their staging up in the front, and even with nets and everything else, it's just a good idea not to have people walking under there.
Especially when they're throwing bricks down.
I would agree. And they'll be done by voting, right?
Unless they run into some serious snags or don't get there when they say, because voting is what,
The 8th of November.
yeah, it should be easily before that. Whatever the second Tuesday falls on, so. And that should straighten out all the problems that we had last year with it.
Other than that, we don't really have issues at the townhouse, do we?
And they're also, in addition to that, they're gonna be replacing some pipes and things down in the basement, just fixing that up.
Yeah.
Nothing major in the basement, just stuff that needs to be done.
Anything else?
No?
Anything from the public for Packer?
I have a question. I guess I'm the guy doing all the talking tonight. Are we gonna be okay with the elderly for that birthday cake on the 14th? Getting into that side entrance?
What time is that going to be?
The ceremony up at Ordination Rock is at 5. We're hoping to be
That's
about
what I
half an
thought.
hour
So,
or
yeah, they'll
so.
be all shut down by that point, yeah.
The elderly people there are probably getting on that side entrance.
No, they can go in through the front, because they won't actually be working
Oh,
at that
okay.
time.
Thank you.
It's just during the day when they're gonna be working on it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else for Packer? 250 Celebration Committee?
We met Tuesday evening, it was predominantly discussed the festivities on the 14th, and we touched a little bit on the variety show at the Barnstormers on the 15th.
Great. That it?
Yeah, he's done.
Economic Development, Pat?
Yeah, let's see, I went to the commission meeting for strategic planning last Monday, and the focus of that was solar power and urging towns to think about it. And there were some funding available that would be for the towns to help citizens take part of that. And there's more information if you wanted to hear more about it. And then I went last Wednesday to the Mount Washington Valley Economic Council, and one interesting thing that I wanted to bring forth was that there's a governor's fund that will allow 2 interns to be hired by a private company, a municipality, whatever. And I don't remember exactly the length of time that would be, but it would be paid for by the economic development in that fund. So like one could say a small business, and the whole point being the experience that they would get in a business. And so I thought that was really, and I brought that information to the planning board, and it's good to tell you all too, so that the minutes and the camera person could let others that see this meeting know that that's available. And if you had more questions about that, I can connect you with whom you need to speak to.
What was the first meeting you went to?
It was Lakes Region Planning Commission
Oh, right, okay.
meeting. And economic development meetings, our own commission, starts next week. I mean, not starts, it is next week, Tuesday.
Thank you, Pat.
Yeah.
Jack Walden?
I was gonna present the CIP report to the selectmen, and I've got 2 paper I've gotta refer to a couple of pages. If you, I'm not sure if you had a copy, I'd be happy to just,
I have some.
you have some there? Okay. Okay, so this is our report for the next, well, for the next 10 years, but mostly we're figuring on next year in budget time. But if you want to look at page 16 of the report, and there's some reports up there on the file cabinet too, for interested people. Page 16 kind of goes over what we're projecting the tax rate for capital expenses are going to be over the next 10 years, but the next few years are the ones that are the most accurate. And what I wanted to point out is, well, let me back up for 1 minute. I mean, the role of the CIP is to talk to departments. We do the planning, we gather information, we make recommendations on capital purchases for the town, and we look at a 10-year time frame. And our goal isn't to spend a lot of money or to spend a little money, but to try to smooth things out so that we're able to not have the tax rate bouncing up and down because of expenses associated with capital purchases. And right now, if you look at the total raised by taxes in that chart 3.3,
you can see that we're projecting for 2017 that it's going to be $1,209,000 and some more money, real money. And the next year is $1,207,000, $1,147,000. So we're kind of smooth, which is our goal. We don't make real budgetary decisions, but we're kind of giving a game plan, a recommended game plan. And I know last year, between the budget process and the town meeting process, some changes were made, and things that we thought were gonna be expensed were not expensed. So then they rolled forward, you know, into this and future years. And what that resulted in is this year, this year we're projecting, if you go down to the 3.4, the tax rate impact, we're projecting that that cost is going to be $3.56 on the tax rate. Last year, before we had to roll some stuff forward, it was only going to be $3.32. I'm just moving, kind of giving you the background for some of the changes that have been made. And I think the only thing I want to emphasize is we can look at the CIP. It's a nice plan, there's a lot of information, but it's almost a jigsaw puzzle. If you pull one piece out, there's another piece that might not fit the same way. And that's how we ended up, you know, having somewhat of an increase in our projected tax rates over the next few years. If you want to go to the page 17, I'll just go over a little bit of department information, some of the changes we might have made. In the first one, the town government line, the selectmen requested, this is in terms of town office renovation, kind of the first line on there, had requested $25,000 in 2017 and $50,000 in 2019, the first being a study for increased space in town offices, and the second one being the actual execution. We're recommending that that be pushed out into 18-19 to try to decrease some of the impact that we have on the 17 tax rate. Again, we're advisory, but this is just our thoughts on the subject. We also, we recommended earlier in the year that the selectmen create a municipal safety planning committee, and they did. We thought that was great to get that process going of our fire department, police, emergency, whatever they might be in the future building. So we put into, and we've talked to the selectmen about this previously, but we put $30,000 in the 2017 recommendation that could be used for planning purposes for that committee. That committee is in process and working. We're not sure where they are, but we thought, from our perspective, we're all done by now, so we wanted to get a placeholder in there anyway. And we also put $1 million, I call this the out bucket, that 2023 through 2026, which is not really well understood what's going to happen that far, but that's the plan, is that we would have the safety building in about 10 years. So we're putting $1 million out there as a placeholder, but we haven't got any real feedback information, you know, on what might happen. Going down to the fire department, we were expecting to be paying for half of the truck over last year and this year, and now we're paying for it over, well, 17 and 18 rather than 16 and 17. But that was, we were expecting about $164,000 in 17, and it actually went up to, when we looked at trying to balance things out, about 198. This is some of the increases, the result of that push out. There's not too much, just for a note, we used to have emergency management in here, which was looking for the fire department, the bottom line now, the rescue transport watercraft of $16,000. That was in the plan for emergency management. We thought it'd be better to just put it in the fire department. They're the people who were gonna own it, and it's all kind of the same thing, but that's just not a real change, but it's a change in the categorization. The police department and the highway department are pretty straightforward. There weren't really much in the way of changes or impacts. Parks and Recreation, their playground expansion, we had been planning on 5,500. They got better estimates as they got closer, and it looks like it's going to be about 7,500, so that was a small increase. And again, from the perspective of the CIP, you know, lots of times we're taking people's information 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 years ahead of time, and they give us their best estimate, but as we get closer, lots of times they can change, and that was typical. Another one on the transfer station, if you go over to the next page, is recycling storage containers 1 and 2 in the dog box. I'm not even gonna ask what the dog box is. We just deal with numbers, we don't deal with the actual data. But there was an increase there because of better estimates. Down in the library, we actually asked the library to push out their carpeting replacement from 218 to 219, because again, we're getting a lot of impact in that 17-18 timeframe, so this was one way to kind of mitigate that a little bit. And the roofing replacement in the library went up from, originally they thought it was only gonna cost them 45, when they got an estimate it was 72, so that's an increase. So those are really the changes as we look at the plan, and we looked at, you know, what we could do, what we could balance. And as I say, we're advisory, we talk to a lot of people in the town, we gather information. We'd be happy, you know, during the budgeting process, if you have any questions and say, gee, do we really have to spend this, or do we don't want to spend this? We'd be happy to give you the information that we have from talking to departments. You guys can talk to departments too, but we're just offering that ability or opportunity, I guess. And so that's an overview. I mean, there's a lot of information here. It's 30 pages. And I know you probably haven't just read it while I've been talking. So other things may come up. And I think we've talked about this in the committee. I think we're talking about how we can better present this information annually. And I think maybe we'll move to where we have a report that has a lot of the non-changing information, and then maybe an annual supplement that could focus people a little bit better on exactly what's going on. So, and actually, there's a few members of the CIP committee here also, so they'd be happy to answer any questions or thoughts. We figured we had to outnumber you, so if anything came down, we'd be in good position.
Steve made it easy.
Steve, yeah, exactly. So, yeah, with Steve missing, it was easy to outnumber you. But anyway.
And he's on our side anyway.
Yeah, right. Yeah, he's a switch hitter. Yeah. So, any thoughts or questions, initial thoughts you may have on the information?
I don't, I think you people have done an excellent job putting this together.
Okay.
It's a great tool, as you know, through our process.
Yep.
Sometimes it changes.
Yep.
But you people gather a lot of information that I think really helps the taxpayers and the Board of Selectmen.
I do. I think the most valuable part of this is that when we talk with all the departments, they start scratching their heads and say, what am I gonna need in 3 years? As opposed to, what am I gonna need next year for the budget? So I think that's a value to the town.
You know, what I see as being one of the biggest benefits is now the different departments are more aware of what each other needs, so it gives them that opportunity to push something out.
I mean, I agree. In fact, this goes back to the fire department purchase, and we had talked to various departments about backing off that year. But those are the kind of things that we get cooperation from the various departments, so that we can make a big purchase in a given year, but not have the tax rate just go boom up and then boom down. Try to keep.
But we gotta make a couple changes at budget season, because you guys wouldn't know what to do if we didn't change.
Well, then we wouldn't have anything to talk about next year. But, and I agree, Jim, I mean, I think we're advisory. You guys at the selectmen, that's where the rubber hits the road in proposing the budget, and then town meeting disposes of the budget. So the only point I'm making is this kind of jigsaw puzzle aspect of this. We'd be happy to provide any kind of information or feedback as you go through the process on why some of these things landed where they did. And if you say, I'd really rather not do this or not do that, but I'm not sure of the full impact, we'll be happy to
Oh, we'll be
cooperate.
here the first 2 Mondays in December, if you like, you can set right in.
Well, that's how I'll put it on my calendar.
That's a good idea you had to do in a supplemental for what the change is. 'Cause
I
I think
think-
somebody picks this up, they're overwhelmed and
I think they are.
don't know what it is.
But that's good. That's when I was in the, maybe I shouldn't say this, but when I was in the engineering world, we used to call this bathroom them with bullshit. But, so I'll stop there.
We all need a little of that sometimes.
Okay.
John Evans was on the, excuse me, any questions from the public for Jeff or anybody from CIP?
Great job.
John Evans was on the agenda. He called the office today and said he'd be coming in next meeting when there was a full board. Selectmen's updates, Jim?
I got nothing, Bruno took care of it. And we didn't have anything with Pat last time, so I'm off the hook on her.
I don't have anything myself either. Old business, Irene's Way, so we're all set on that. Public comment,
When is the next meeting?
excuse me?
When's the next meeting?
October 20th.
20.
October 20th, okay. And that's the full board.
Yep. Well, we're planning on it, subject to change.
Sure.
Public comment? Becky?
Just since we're down to one police officer in town now, how's the easiest way to get hold of the police officer for a non-emergency follow-up?
Just call the direct line to the PD.
Okay, and leave a message?
Yep.
Okay.
I mean, that's the preferred option, but if you needed, you could call dispatch, Carroll County.
I'd rather
And they
not
could-
if it's non-emergent,
Yeah.
it's just follow-up.
If it's
so-
an emergency, call dispatch and they'll page us or call us.
Okay.
Don't worry about us. Yeah. Yeah, get used to that.
Greg, are you able to issue pistol permits?
We have a process that we're going through right now with the assistance of the Carroll County Sheriff.
Okay.
So they're getting done in the time frame that they're required to.
Do they drop them off at the town police station?
Yep.
Okay.
They drop the applications off at the PD and then I take it from there. And
Okay.
Any other yeah.
I just want to ask a question. You mentioned earlier about a potential meeting with Molten Borough about pooling resources. Was there any indication of what types of resources they were thinking
They
about?
didn't go into any specifics.
Okay, and I guess what I want to ask, and I'm not sure whether this is the moment, but I'm going to do it. Economic Development has as their mission statement, your Economic Development Commission. One of the missions is regionalization. The Mount Washington Valley Economic Council talks often, and there is a regionalization group that works together in other towns throughout the state. Lakes Region Planning keeps bringing forth areas where they have accomplished regionalization with other towns. And I guess that I'm wondering whether you might think about where we are right now in buildings and departments and whatever, to think about whether it would be beneficial to think about in the future cooperating with other towns and their resources to make it less of a single town effort. And which was interesting when I heard you say, there's a meeting that they're asking the selectmen to talk to Molten Borough.
They reached out to all of the surrounding towns.
Yeah, well, I think that's really great.
Yep.
I mean, that's what I've been hoping you guys would think about. And in fact, Norman may not realize it, but I brought regionalization of sewer corrections and whatever over the years, other things, but thank you, I'm glad I'm looking forward to hearing what that meeting's about, so thanks.
Thank you. Any other public comment tonight? We're gonna have a non-public under RSA, excuse me?
I'm just gonna give you what it said tonight, so we can go.
Non-public RSA 91A 32A.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then we'll be adjourning.